Hello everybody, welcome to linuxin.com's YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to talk about 10 important interview questions about strings in C language, okay? So without further ado, let's start, okay? So if you're already watching this series, then you know that the pattern of the videos is like so and so, okay? So we have, a number of questions. I answer them. Some of them are theoretical and some of them are related to code purely. And then you basically note that down. Okay. So that's what we refer to as kinesthetic learning. So without further ado, let's start and let's see that what are those 10 questions, 10 most important interview string related questions in C, and let's see how we can answer them. Okay. So the number one question that we have is how to read a string from user. Okay. So the idea is that you can read the string from the user using scanf library or the scanf function in C. Okay. So for that you need a library stdio.h. So what we're going to do is that we are going to open up our terminal first of all. And what we're going to do is that we're going to zoom in a little bit and then we're going to move to our desktop where we have our C file, which is demo.c essentially. So what we do is that we open this demo.c file with our favorite editor. So we'd write here gedit and then we'd write here demo.c. We hit enter and it would basically open up here. All right. So what we can do is that, if you're not familiar with this code was like, we have covered it in the previous video, which was related to the C interview question. I'll put the link into the description for that video as well. So what we're going to do is that we're going to remove this code, okay? And inside this main block, we are going to write the code, all right? So what we're going to do is that first of all, we're going to have here a character, okay? Character data type. And then we're going to have here the character array for the input. Okay, so let's name this input as car and let's give it a size here, let's say 25, and then we put a semicolon here to end the line. Okay, then we have here the printf, and using printf we write here enter your favorite car. Okay, and then we put a semicolon here, and obviously we can have here a colon as well, then we can have here a space as well. And after that, now we are going to scan it basically. Okay, so in order to scan it, what you would do that you'd write here scanf, and here in the double quotes you'd write here %s because that is the string that we want to catch, and then we'd write here the variable name, which is essentially car. Okay, and that is it. Basically you have scanned the variable till here very successfully, and at the end you can do what? You can basically print it out. Okay, so that is what that we have scanned. All right, so what we would write here the car, or your favorite car is, and then what we can do is that we can write here %s. all right, and then obviously you can put here a comma, and then you would write here the variable name in which we have scanned the value or the result. Okay, so the idea is that here we have defined a character array and then we have basically scanned the variable into it. So whatever the value that user would give, it would be stored in this variable. Okay, and when it would be stored in this variable, it can be printed out easily using this variable, and that's what we have done here essentially. And now finally, what we do, we write here return 0 and we are all done. So that's how you basically read a string. So let's just quickly save it, and let's just go ahead and let's just try to run our code. Okay, so in order to run our code, what we do is that we usually write this command here, gcc demo.c, and then -o flag for the output, and then we hit enter, and here you can see that there are no errors in our file essentially. So if there would have been errors here, it would have given us like any sort of error, it would have been displayed it here. Okay, So now what we're going to do is that we're going to run our output file. So when we run it, you can see that it says after running our output binary file, it says enter your favorite car. Okay, so let me write here my favorite car. Let's say I write here BMW, and you can see that it says here your favorite car is BMW. All right, so that was really simple. So if you want to give it a space here, you can also do that. Just simply right after here you can put a /n to come to the next line. All right, so just save it, just cross it, and then you can come back, you can quickly run it again, and then you can run your output file, enter your favorite car, let's say Honda, hit enter, and you can see that it says your favorite car is Honda. Okay, so that's how easy it is. So now let's move on to our next question, which is essentially question number 2, which is how to pass a string to a function. Okay, so passing string to a function is fairly simple. So for that, what we're going to do is that we are going to have a function here first, and then we'd basically pass that string through that function. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and let's try to write the code. So what we would do, we'd simply open up the demo.c file. Okay, and in here we would start to code. So what we're gonna do is that first of all, we're gonna have a function here, a function which would be of void type, which means that it would not return any value. It can have arguments only, or it cannot have any argument. Okay, so in the case of void, so here you can see that I name the function as, let's say, pass str. Okay, and then what I can do is that I can write here the character, and then I can have the string variable or the character array. Okay, and then I have brackets here, and inside these brackets what I'm gonna do is that I am going to write here the output. Okay, so what I would do, I would write here printf, and obviously the string whatever we would pass through that function, we want it to be printed out. Okay, so what we would do, would write here the string is, and then we give a space here, and then we can let's not do /n, let's come to the next line, and then we are going to write here puts, and then inside here we're going to write here str. So if you don't know what puts and gets is, let me define that for you. So fgets and puts, basically they are function. Fgets is a function that read a line of a string, and basically puts is the function, is the built-in function that you can use to display the string. Okay, so that was fairly simple. And now what we would do would basically we have the function here, and we can go here, and what we can do is that we can have here a character, and let's say character str, and let's give it a value, let's say 120, and then we have here a semicolon, and after having semicolon here we have printf here, and we say that write down your string. Okay, and then we have a semicolon here which basically ends the line essentially, and then we use the fget function now. Okay, so fget basically, as I have explained to you earlier, that it basically catches, or it takes the input as the line of the string. Okay, so it takes it as an input. All right, so now what we're going to do, that first of all we're going to write here fgets. all right, and in here what we're going to do is that we are going to write here str, we're going to put here a comma, and then we write here size of, and then we write here str, then we put a comma here, and we write here standard input. Okay, so these are the 3 arguments that we have passed through this fgets function. And now we come down here, and here we are going to use that function. We are going to call that function, and we're going to pass the string through it. Okay, so we're going to write here pass str, and inside here we're going to pass the string, which is essentially str here as well. Okay, if you can see here. So now we just put a semicolon here, we are all done. So you can see that the function would be called here and this would be printed out. So now, so one last thing that we need to do is that we need to declare that function that I forgot. So just remember that you need to declare it first. Okay, so we'd write here pass str, and then basically we have here the character str, the value, the argument that we would pass. We just put a semicolon here. So this is just, you can say, the initialization of a function, like you initialize a variable in a program. Okay, so now we just save it and we go back. Let me just cross it. We come here, we try to run our code, and you can see that there are no errors right now. So we run our output as well, and after running our output binary file, it says write down your string. Okay, so basically whatever the string that we would write down here, it would be passed through that specific function. Okay, so let's say we write here Linux hint and we hit enter, and you can see that it says the string is Linux hint. Okay, so that was the answer to your second question. So now let's move on to the third question, which is essentially what is the difference between gets and puts in C. So as I have explained to you earlier, that you can use fgets function to read a line of a string, and you can use the puts function to display the string. Okay, essentially. So let's do an example exactly of that point. Actually, we have done that in question number 2. So just repeat that. Okay, just watch question number 2. It is same. Okay, it is not any different. So you can just simply have those 3 arguments. Let me open that code for you that we just have completed. So we just write here gedit, and then we write here demo.c. We open it up. Here you can see that we have used the puts function to display the string. All right, and we have used the fgets function to basically get the line of the string. Okay, whatever it is. So we have done 2 answers here. Okay, two questions basically, the question number 2 and the question number 3. The question number 2 was basically how to pass a string to a function, and question number 3 was like what is the difference between gets and puts. Okay, so you know that gets is basically used to take the input, okay, or fgets you can say, and puts is basically it is used to display that input that you have taken or the string that you have taken. Okay, so I hope you've got the point. So now let's move on to the next question, which is question number 4. Could you find the frequency of characters in a string? So yes, it is possible to find the frequency of characters in a string. So frequency means that how many times a specific character is repeating. Okay, so let's say that you have a tense like this is a ball. Okay, so let's say you can say that, okay, tell me the frequency of I in this sentence. So we know that this I is it's there one time, is I repeats like second time, a ball. Okay, so I repeats 2 times basically, so the frequency of I is 2 in that specific sentence. So basically, can you figure that out? Can you find it out using C programming So the answer to that question is that yes, it is possible. Okay, so we'd do that. So we'd go to our terminal and we'd basically go to our code here. So let's just remove all of that. Okay, the extra code. We don't need these functions, so we don't need this declaration of the function as well, and we also don't need this code as well here. And now what we're going to do is that we are going to write a program which would basically take a string first, and then it would take the character that you want to know the frequency of, and then after that it would display you the frequency, okay, in basically simple digits, that this many times this character has repeated, or this character has the frequency of, let's say, 5 or 7 or whatever. Okay, so now let's go ahead and let's try to do it. All right, So what we're going to do is that first of all, we're going to have a character array for string, and we are going to have a characters variable simple, which would basically take just one character. Okay, so for that, what we would do would write here character str, and we can have here, like, let's say 500, and then we can have a character ch var, which is a character variable. And now what we can do is that we can have two variables. One would be for loop, or we can define that variable later as well. So we'd have here an integer variable with the name of frequency, and we'd basically initialize it as 0, because sometimes when you rerun the program, it has garbage values in it, and it could basically misguide you, and it could give you random values that you won't even understand. Okay, so for that, every time you run the program, you need to make sure that the variable is initialized and the memory is cleaned and there are no garbage values. Okay, so what we're going to do now is that we're going to come to the next line, and here we are going to write here printf, let's say, and inside here we're going to write double quotes, and then we're going to write here enter any string. Okay, so enter any string or any sentence. All right, so we put a semicolon here, we come here, and now what we're going to do is that we're going to use the gets function. Okay, and in here we're going to pass this str variable that we had here, and now what we're going to do is that we're going to write here printf, and in here we're going to write here enter a character which you want to find the frequency of. Okay, so we write here write down the character that you want to find the frequency of. Okay, so now what we're gonna do, we're gonna put a semicolon here, and obviously we're gonna scan it. Okay, so we'd use scanf, and because this is a character, this is going to be a character, so we'd use here %c. If that would have been a string, then we would have used a %s, and if that would have been an integer, we would have used %d. Okay, so that's very simple. So now what we're going to do is that we're going to write here ampersand sign, because in the case of scan, you basically write here ampersand, and then you write here the chvar, which is the character variable. Okay, and now we're going to have here the for loop, and inside for loop we basically define the integer I variable, and after defining it, we basically initialize it. We'd write here 0, and after writing 0, we'd put a semicolon here, and we come here, and now we write here the str, and obviously str, and then the index would be I of the array, and then we'd basically write here is not equal to, and then we write here this sign, which basically stands for null. Okay, so until and unless that specific entry of the string, the character that we are looking for, it results into null, or it's not there, until and unless it's not there, we'd run the loop until then. Okay, so I repeat that basically there would be a character on that specific index that we are referring to. Okay, and what would happen is that it would basically run the loop until we keep on getting that specific character, and there would come a time when it would be equal to null. Okay, so until it is not equal to null, it's running, the loop is running, and when it becomes null, meaning there is no more character, we are unable to find that character, in that specific case, what's going to happen is that it is going to end the loop. Okay, so now we'd basically pre-increment it, and then we'd basically write here the brackets, and inside these brackets we're going to write here a condition. We'd write here if ch, and then we'd write here double equal, and in here we're going to write here str and I, and after that what we're going to do is that we are going to increment the variable frequency equals or plus equals 1. Okay, or you can also increment it as well, so you can write here this thing as well. Okay, it would work fine both ways. All right, so now what you can do is that you can write here that the printf statement outside the for loop, you can write here that the frequency of percentage %c, which is a character, is let's say we write here percentage %d. Okay, percentage %d is for the string base of is for the integer, excuse me. And now what we're going to do is that we are going to write here for percentage %c, would write here chvar, and here we also need to write chvar, and then we're gonna write here a comma here, and after that we'd write here the frequency variable, which is essentially freq. Okay, so then we write here a colon or semicolon, excuse me, and we are all done. So the last thing that we always do is that we're going to return 0, so that it does not give any sort of error and the program runs smoothly. Okay, it would not actually give an error, it would not be able to print the output, I guess. So that's why we write here return 0 or get ch, okay, in some compiler. And before we go ahead and we run our code, one more thing that I would like to share, that here we can use fgets instead of gets. Okay, so gets function, it is dangerous and it would basically give some sort of warning. Okay, so make sure that you use fgets. Okay, you can use gets as well, but it is more safe to use fgets. And the other thing that you need to do is that you need to pass here the argument. Okay, fgets, it is always going to have 3 arguments. So you write here size of str, and then you write here stdin. Okay, so now that's it. We are all done. So we save it and we go back. Let me just basically cross that. Okay, and we go to our terminal, we try to run our code, and you can see that there are no errors right now. So we go ahead and we try to run our output file. Okay, so we write here output, we hit enter, and you can see that it says enter any string or any sentence. Okay, so let's say that we write here this is Linux hint ID and we love it. Okay, so we hit enter and you can see that it says write down the character that you want to find the frequency of. So let's say I want to find the frequency of I, so I hit enter and you can see that it says the frequency of I is 6. Okay, so let me just write it down, like let me use here the /n so that it, you could see it like clearly. So what we would do would basically write here /n, let's say, and now if we save it, we come back here and we try to run our code again. There are no errors, and now we try to run our output, enter any string or any sentence. Okay, so right here, let's say this is a great wall and I love it. Okay, so I hit enter and you can see that it says write down the character that you want to find the frequency of. So let's say I write here I, or let's say I write here A. So you can see that it says the frequency of A is 4. Okay, so I hope you have got the point. So now let's move on to our next question. Question number 5. It says, could you remove all characters in a string except alphabet? So the answer to that question is yes, we can do that. So alphabets, you mean that if you write a string like, let's say linuxhint.com or linuxhint YouTube channel @ 1 exclamation mark or things like that. So we can remove all of that and we can just extract the alphabets which are like Linux Hint YouTube channel. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's try to do it. So for that, what we would do would just go ahead to our code. Okay, let me just clear it, and we go here gedit, and then we go inside here. We remove everything from here except return 0. Okay, so we remove this code, and in here what we're going to do is that we are going to have a line, or we are going to have a string here. So for that, what we would do would write here character str, and let's say we have the size of it as 500. And then what we're going to do is that we are going to basically take the input, right? So what we would do would write here printf, and inside here what we're going to do is that we are going to write here that write down any string that you want. Okay, you want to write. So after that we put a semicolon here, and obviously we need to scan it. Okay, so what we do, we use here gets or fgets function to get it. So we write here fgets, and then the first argument is gonna be str, the second argument is gonna be the size of, then I pass str through it, and the third argument is going to be stdin, or s standard input. Okay, so now we put a semicolon here, and after that what we are going to do now is that we are going to have a for loop. Okay, and inside that for loop would basically have we would have two for loops, a loop within a loop. Okay, so that's the approach that we're gonna use. Okay, so what it would do, that it would take a string from the user and it would store it inside the variable str, and then basically within the loop we basically put a check for each character in the string, and if that basically character is an alphabet or not, we basically check that. And if any character inside a string is not an alphabet, all characters after it, including the null character, is shifted by one position to the left. Okay, it is possible that we could have a null character in the string as well. Okay, so we'd have a null character as well, and things like that, and I'll show you that how exactly you can do it. So what we're gonna do is that we're gonna have a for loop here, and the convention of for loop is to use I, j, k, or n. So let's say we write here integer n equals 0. Okay, then we put a semicolon here, and then we write here the variable which is essentially str, and then we write here n. And after that what we're going to do is that we're going to write here a condition that unless it is not equals to null. Okay, so unless it is not equal to null, now we're going to increment it, and inside the for loop we're going to write another condition. Okay, and that condition would be to have a while loop here. So we'd write here while, and inside while we'd write here another condition, and that would be basically str I. Okay, and strn, excuse me, and then we are going to write here, and here we would have plus plus n as well. So I keep on forgetting it because this is just a convention to use I and k. You can use anything you want. So now what we're going to do is that we're going to have here str n, and after that what you're going to do is that you're going to have here a condition is greater than or equals to, and then we're going to have here a. Okay, and after that we're going to have here an and condition. Okay, and basically if you're familiar with that, and means that it is like both conditions have to be true. Okay, only in that case it would admit it. So now what we're gonna do is that we're gonna use the Z, the last character of the alphabet. So what we would do, we'd write here str, and inside here we write here n, and this time we're gonna write here less than or equals to z or small z. Okay, and in the similar way we're gonna do this thing for the capital A and capital Z, or the capital alphabets, you can say. So we write here double pipe, and after that what we're gonna do is that we're gonna have here str, and str inside here we pass n here, and then we are going to have here the same sign like greater than or equals to, and then we have here capital A, and then we have here the and sign, and then basically in the similar way we write here str n, and then we basically write here greater than or less than or equal to. Okay, and then we basically write here capital Z. Okay, so the last condition that we could have is that it could be null as well. Okay, so now what we would do, we would have another pipe sign here, and then inside here we're gonna write here strn. all right, let me just make it a little bit bigger. So strn, and then you're going to write here double equals, and then you're going to write here double equal is basically a comparison operator. We have discussed it in the previously done interview video, a 1-hour video. I'm going to put the link to that video in the description as well. Okay, so now we basically close the brackets. Okay, so that was the while condition that we have made for characters just. And now inside the body of that while loop, we're going to have the body of that while loop. So inside that body of the while loop, what we're going to do is that we're going to write here another for loop, and this time the for loop is going to use the n character or the n variable that we have. So we're going to write here k, we're going to define here integer k, which is going to be equal to n, and then we're going to write here str, and this time we're going to write here k instead of n, and we're going to write here the same condition is not equals to null. Okay, until and unless this is not equal to null, this loop will basically run. Okay, so we'd write here plus plus k. All right, so now what we're going to do is that we are going to basically move it by 1. Okay, so if it is not null, so would write here basically we'd have here the body of the for loop first, and after having the body of the for loop, what we're going to do that inside of the body of the for loop we are going to write a simple line here. We'd write here str, here we would have k, and then we'd have here equal sign, and then we'd have here str, and we'd move it by 1. Okay, so we'd write here str k plus 1. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is that we're gonna put a semicolon here, and we are all done. So just one more thing that we could have here is that we can have here the null character outside the for loop. So would have here basically str. So basically the idea is that we are using this character outside the body, right? The k, I'm talking about the k variable. So what we can do is that we can define this n and k globally. Okay, so right now you cannot use this k variable outside this for loop, but we need to use it right here. So we'd write here str, and we just need to do a little change that I would explain to you. So we'd just write here k, and then we'd write here equals, and then we'd write here basically null. Okay, this value here 0. All right. So now what we are gonna do is that the idea is that you cannot use this k variable outside this for loop, outside the body of the for loop, because it is being defined here. So what we can do is that we can define this k and n outside this for loop here, which would basically take it as globally. Okay, so we can write here integer n and k. Okay, so now we have defined them here. So now they are working globally. You can use them wherever you want, even outside the for loops as well. So now what we're going to do is that we're going to come out of all the loops, and in here finally we are going to write our string, or we're going to display the string which is basically without the characters. All the other characters have been removed except alphabets. Okay, so we're going to write here printf, and inside here we're going to write the string without characters, without other characters, and with alphabets only. Okay, and then we can have here puts as well. We put here /n. We come to the next line, and here we have puts, and we have here, let's say, the str, and then we can have here printf, and we can move it to the next line. Okay, so we have /n here. So now we are all done, and I would explain to you once again that what we have done, that within the loop, within the for loop, each character in the string, we are checking it, okay, if it is an alphabet or not. Okay, so here we have the condition, and then we are basically if any character inside a string is not an alphabet, all characters after it, including the null character, is shifted by one position to the left, which means that we are getting it out of the string, okay, gradually. And we actually don't need to have a bracket here. Okay, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So the brackets, the first bracket that we have, it's gonna be from here till here. The second one is going to be from here till here, and that's pretty much it. Okay, so this pipe sign is it doesn't need any bracket. Okay, even if you put it or if you don't put it, that's equally fine. So now we are done. Now we save it basically, and we go back, we try to run our code, and you can see that there are no errors. So now we run our output file, we hit enter, it says write down any string that you want to write. So we write here Linux hint 1 2 3, then we put some characters, and then we write here YouTube. So we hit enter, and you can see that it says the string without other characters and with alphabets only, which is Linux hint YouTube. Okay, so it has removed all the other characters in between. You can simply put these characters in the beginning of the string, and you can also put it at the end of the string, and you would have the same result. Okay, so I hope you've got the point. So now let's move on to the next question. This is question number 6. How would you copy a string using built-in function? So built-in function for copying a string is strcpy, or string copy function, which is a built-in function, and we use the string.h library or the string.h header file in order to use it. All right, so what we're going to do is that we are going to go to our terminal, and let me just clear it. So we're going to open up our demo.c file, and in here let me just remove all of that because we don't need it. And in here we are going to add the string.h library or the header file. Okay, so string.h, and once you do that, now what you're going to do is that you're going to write here, you're going to have here strings, and you're going to basically copy them. Okay, so first of all, let's say that I have the character array and I have a string of size, let's say 50, and let's say that I give it a value like, let's say, Linux hint. Okay, so let's say that we have more variables like that. Okay, so 50, and let me just have here str1, and then let's say we have here str2, and let's say this is a size of 50 as well. So now what we're gonna do is that we're gonna use the string copy function, and let's say we copy this str to str1. Okay, which means that we're copying the Linux into str1, and basically we copy this str2, and we copy a random string into it. So let's say copy. Okay, so we put a semicolon here and we are done with that as well. So what we do now is that we come here, we basically try to print it out. So we print out the str1, and we also print out the str2. Okay, so after writing that down, what we're gonna do is that we're gonna check for mistakes. So we can see here I forgot to put a semicolon here. So now we basically say we're gonna run our code here. So you can see that there are no errors right now. So now we run our output file, and you can see that we have Linux hint and copy here. Okay, so I hope you have got the point. And now what we're gonna do is that we're gonna move on to the next question, which is essentially question number 7, which says, could you copy a string without using a built-in function? Okay, so the answer to that question is yes. Yes, we can copy a string without using a built-in function. It is quite possible, and let's see that how we can do it. So for that we can also write the code, okay, which would basically copy the content of one string to another. You can say manually. Okay, I say manually because we are not using the string copy function that we have used previously. Okay, so what we're gonna do is that we're gonna go to our terminal, and let me just clear it. So let me just open up this demo.c file, and in here let me just remove this code from here. Okay, so I remove this code, and now what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna write here a character array. Let's call it str, and then let's say we have a size of, let's say, 50, and then we put a semicolon here, or excuse me, comma, or let's say semicolon to end the line. And then in a similar way we define another array of the string, which is essentially str1. We put a semicolon here, and now we basically define another character variable that and now what we would do would write here a print statement. Would write here print f, and in here we're gonna write here enter first enters, or enter just string, or write down string. And inside here we're gonna write down a string. Okay, and now what we're going to do is that we're going to basically copy it, we're going to read it, excuse me, and we are going to read it inside another variable, and that variable is essentially str. Okay, so we write here scanf, and then we write here %s, and we write it inside the double quotes. And after that what I do is that I store it inside the str. I put a semicolon here, I come to the next line, and now what I'm gonna do is that I'm going to copy this from str to str1. Okay, so for that, what I would do, I would write here a for loop. I would write here for, and then I would write here integer I equals 0. I'd initialize it, and then I would write here str, and then I would write here I, and then I would write here equal sign, and then I would write here inside of that we write here /0, and then we write here a semicolon, and then we write here plus I, and then after that I have a for loop, so I write here the brackets, and inside these brackets what I'm going to do is that I'm going to write here the str1, and I'm going to copy it character by character using this for loop. Okay, so it would take the first alphabet or first character, it would copy it inside the str1, then it would take the second one, it would copy it inside the str1, then the third one, and then the so on and so forth. Okay, so I hope you've got the point. So put a semicolon here, and now what we're going to do is that we're going to write here str1, and after that we're going to write here I, and obviously we need to use the I outside of the for loop. So what we're going to do is that we're going to write it here, integer I equals 0, or integer I. Okay, so now what we can do is that we can have here str1I, then we can put here the equal sign. All right, and we have here the colons, and inside these colons I write a null value here. I put a semicolon here as well, and now I'm going to write here the printf statement, or the printf line, and inside the printf line what I'm going to do is that I'm going to write here str1 is, and then I basically write here %s, and then I write here comma, and then I write here str1. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much it. And then finally we have the return 0 here. So that's how you basically copy a string into another string using you can say manually, okay, without using the string copy function. Before running the code, we need to double check our code, and everything seems fine except this one here. So we need to put a colon inside, and then we save it, and now we cross it, we come out of here, and now we try to run our code, and you can see that there are no errors in here. So now what we're gonna do is that we're gonna write here output, we hit enter, and you can see that it says write down a string. So we write here, let's say Linux hint, we hit enter, and you can see that it says str1 is Linux hint. Okay, so we can actually make it more clearer by writing here a thing like that. So write down a string in str. Okay, and what we can do is that we can write here /n so that it moves on to the next line. So yeah, we save it, we cross it, and we come down here. Let me just clear it. We run our program again, there are no errors, so we run our output binary file. So it says write down a string in str, so we are going to write in str. Let's say we write here Linux, and you can see that str1 is Linux. So we have copied the string manually successfully without having to use the string copy function. Okay, so now let's move on to the next question, which is essentially question number 8. Is could you calculate the length of the string? So yes, for that we have a string length function, and obviously you can you can do that without using the str length function as well. So let's do it. Let's go ahead and let's do it. Go ahead, gedit demo.c, we open it up. We have string.h here. So what we're gonna do is that we're gonna clear all of that, and we're gonna have here character str50, and inside here let's say we pass any value. So let's say we write here equals, let's say Linux hint, yes, Linux hint. Okay, so we come to the next line, and now if we want to calculate it, how would we do that? We'd write here printf, and we would write here length of a string. So length of a string or length of string str is, and then we write here percentage ld for, because it could be a long integer or long string. And then we write here percentage ld for long integer or long digit. The length could be anything, right? So we write here /n, and after that we come out of here, and now we basically use the strlen function, and inside of here we pass str. Okay, so that was fairly simple. We save it and we come out of our let me just cross it. Okay, so we try to run our code. You can see that there are no errors, so we run our output binary file, and you can see that it says length of string str is 9. And if you go back in our gedit demo file, you can see that 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. Okay, so the length of this string was 9, and it has displayed it accordingly and successfully. So now let's move on to the next question, which is essentially question number 9. It says, could you reverse a string in C? And the answer to that question is yes, we can do that. So let's go ahead and let's write a program to reverse a string. Okay, so the program that we're going to write, first it would basically take a string from the user, and then it would basically call the function to reverse it. Okay, so we'd create a function in which we'd basically reverse the string. All right, so the function, it would store the first letter entered by the user in a variable, okay, that we would have. And then if the variable is like any character other than /n entered character, then we'd basically reverse it. Okay, and basically we reverse it by calling the reverse function again. So when the reverse function is called the second time, the second entered and the second letter, so when the reverse function is called the second time, the second letter entered by the user is stored in the variable again. Okay, but the variable is the second function isn't the same as the first. Okay, but the variable in the second function isn't the same as the first. They both take different space in the memory. Okay, so this process goes on until user enters like null character or /n or hit enter. Okay, so /n is for enter. Okay, so now what we would do would basically go on and we try to write here our code. Okay, so first of all we need to define that function. So we write here void, and we write here reverse str, and inside here we do not need to pass any arguments, so we just have here a semicolon, and here we would have that function. So we write here void reverse, and make sure that the name of the function is the same as you have defined earlier. Okay, so now inside here what we're going to do is that we're going to write here a character variable ch essentially, and then we're going to write here scanf, and then we're going to write here percentage c, let's say, and then we're going to have here ampersand sign, and that percentage c would be inside the double quotes. Okay, and then we're going to have here this bracket. Okay, so we'd basically scan it, and after that what we would do here we're going to have ch. Okay, so now what we would do would basically put a semicolon here, and now we'd come down here. So we'd write here, let me just come here. So we'd write here if, then we'd write here ch if that is not equals to let's say enter. Okay, so for enter we'd use /n. For the next line, you can say if it hasn't gone to the next line, what it would do, it would call this function again. Okay, so it would basically do it using recursion. Okay, so recursion is one function calling itself inside itself. Okay, you can say. So if one function is calling itself over and over again, that thing is recursion. So what we would do would basically call this function reverse str here, and we put a semicolon here. And now what we're going to do is that we're going to write here a printf statement, and inside the printf statement we're going to have here %c, then we put a comma here, and then we have ch here. We put a semicolon, and we are all done with this function. Okay, so now what we would do would basically write here print, actually everything, the scan thing, we have it inside the reverse str function, so we do not actually need to scan inside the main function. It would scan inside the reverse str function. So we'll just write here printf, it's gonna be in small actually, so printf, and we're gonna write here enter any string to reverse. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is that we're gonna put a semicolon here, and in this line we are going to call this reverse str. Okay, so what we're gonna do is that we're gonna save it. We are going to go back here, but we need to cross it first because we have opened it using our terminal. So now we go ahead and we try to run our code. You can see there are no errors, so now we can run our output file. So it says enter any string to reverse. Okay, so we write here you know, sad, sad. So if we hit enter, you can see that it says dash is dash. Okay, so if we try to run it once again, and if we try to write here dad, csi dad, so the reverse of it would be dad is dad. Okay, so I hope you have got the point. So you can reverse any string that you want to using this code. So that's it from the question number 9. So now let's move on to the question number 10. Okay, so now let's move on to the next question, last but not least, which is question number 10. Could you predict the output? So the idea is that we are using here a 3D array that should have a like 20 multiplied by 30 multiplied by 30. It could have like more than, I think, if you multiply, let me just do the math here quickly in my calculator. So if you multiply 20 by 30 and then multiply 30, it's like 18,000. Okay, so you can have 18,000 members here. Okay, so this is basically a 3D array. Okay, and the idea is that we are initializing here, and we are using here only 1 2 3 4 5 6 elements here. Okay, in C, basically when you initialize a less number of elements in an array, all uninitialized elements, they become null. Okay, in case of character, they become like /0 or /0, and in case of integers, they become like 0. Okay, so we know that the output of it is gonna be Ubuntu. Okay, so how do I know that? I know that this is the 3D array, and we are using here the static str. We are trying to reach. So what we're gonna do is that we're gonna copy this, and we are going to our file here. We paste this code, and here you can see that the color of U is not pink. So let me just make it right here. So we put the right colon here, and now you can see that the color has changed. So we save it. There are no errors in the file apparently. So we save it, we cross it, we go back, we try to run our code, and you can see that there are no errors. And if we run our output file now, so you can see that the output is Ubuntu. Okay, the same output that we have predicted. So these were the 10 questions for C strings interview. I hope you have enjoyed it, you have liked the video. If you have any questions, if you want to add any questions, do so in the comments please. And for written articles, you can always visit our website linuxhint.com. Until next time, I will see you. Thank you so much for watching.